When your Japanese is not that good, I'll be like, Boku no namae wa, and they'll be like, Nihongo jouzu desu ne, or something like that.
Hey guys, welcome back to the KoreKara podcast. This week, we talked to Nick, who's a professional comedian in Japan. He actually trained in a professional comedian school, which is where he got extremely fluent in Japanese. Well, we talk about his experience working in the comedy industry in Japan, his experience learning other languages, and other projects that he's working on today.
But you know what is not a joke? That's absolutely destroying and shocking the like button and following us both on Twitter. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast.
All right, so Nick, can you give us a quick background of who you are and where you're at today?
Sure. Yeah, I'm American. I'm from Oakland, and I came to Japan in, I think, 2007 or 8. I went to university here for a little while, and then I joined the comedy school. I wasn't really interested in Japanese comedy, but I needed a visa, so I went to comedy school, and I got lucky, and I do Manzai, and my Manzai partner and I got on this kind of big contest. We got to the finals of the contest, and then got a bunch of TV jobs, and I've just been doing this ever since. So it's been about 11 years doing it professionally.
The Manzai school is actually where you got like super good at Japanese, right?
Yep. Because, you know, there's no other foreigners there. You're listening Japanese every day. Everybody speaks really well. Like, you know, people, comedians speak usually better than, you know, normal people. Like, they're pretty animated and dynamic and stuff like that. So
that's kind of like a unique situation. Like, because like so far everybody we've interviewed usually have like a very set path. I guess like in your case, like what do you feel like was the thing about that school that made you improve a lot? Was it just like being in an environment without other people, or is it like because you're constantly analyzing the speech, how you're saying stuff like that?
Yeah, well, like one thing is you're copying people, you know, like you want to sound like everybody else. So there's that. Right. And then the other thing is like there's senpai, you know, like the senpai kohai thing in, you know, Japan. Yeah. So that's basically just immersion of comedy. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. You know how Matt vs. Japan talks about like adopting a parent and stuff like that. You basically are just with this famous guy every single day, and he's making jokes in front of you, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make jokes like that. And then the other thing is when you're practicing Manzai, you know, which is like 3 to 4 minutes, you usually make one joke a month. You're repeating a script, a daihon, that's just over and over again until it starts coming out naturally. So like the words written down end up not being what you're saying. Like it ends up being an actual conversation, but it's just repetition over and over and over again. And I'm still doing that. And that's still, I think, the best way to learn Japanese.
Wait, so like repeating and then emulating like what other people are saying, you think?
Say you have like a script for your, you know, what you write. First, it's written in kanji. So you're reading kanji, right? And then you're saying it. And even now, I mean, I'm much faster at being able to, you know, perform Manzai than I used to be. But it used to take like a month for me to remember a 3-minute script. So you're reading, you're just saying stuff over and over again, and there's a Japanese guy right next to you. So you're also, you know, sounding like he wants you to sound. It's very strange because the way a script works is you're horrible at it, then you sound exactly like the script, and then the final stage is this doesn't sound like a script anymore. I mean, stand-up comedians do this too, right?
Natural.
You know?
So I guess like in that, like that method can get you like really good speaking wise, but what do you think about comprehension? Because especially like Manzai, that's like one of the hardest forms of media.
I've always said this to people, and it's kind of funny. Like, I've seen 10,000 jokes, right? Because I've been on over 1,000 shows, and it's not just us on, it's like 30 people on each show. So just imagine that compounding. Even now, they're jokes that I don't understand, but, you know, I always pretended to laugh. Right. Not because, you know, I felt bad for them, but I wanted people to think that I understood what they were talking about, you know? The comprehension, I don't know if jokes are the best way to learn comprehension. I think TV is a little bit easier. Comprehension took a long time for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say the thing about the laughing, because I feel like that's really true. It's like, even if you understand, if everyone's laughing, you're kind of like pressured to laugh.
Exactly.
And that's what I thought when I saw Will Smith laughing.
Yeah.
When he made that joke. But then people were saying, oh, it's because his wife got angry. But what I was thinking was like, he just laughed because in the moment everyone's laughing.
The thing with like, one thing just to kind of change the subject about Will Smith is, have you guys seen Japanese people's takes on this thing with Will Smith?
I don't think I have.
It's really interesting because in Japan, you know, victimizing someone for the sake of laughter, like basically the Manzai duo or whatever the comedians, they're like the martyrs for the entire country, basically. So this guy's designated to be made fun of. So there's a really famous kombi called Sambyoshi. It's a tall guy and a fat guy. And when the tall guy's making fun of the fat guy, it's a way for, like fat people in the audience to laugh, but not feel like they were victimized at the same time, This thing with Will Smith, because the Japanese people think what Chris Rock said to his wife is like the worst joke they've ever heard. They're like, this is so horrible. I would have punched him in the, like, they're totally mostly on Will Smith's side. And I've gotten a lot of comments because I made a video about like, this is why America starts wars, or like, this is why Americans are so unhappy. Like, it's really interesting how sensitive they are. And I hate to go back to this, but do you guys know who Ruth Benedict is?
No.
No, I don't.
She studied Japanese people and American, like the differences between their behavior patterns during World War II, because they wanted to figure out like, what's the difference? And basically her thesis was that the West is guilt culture and Japan is shame culture. And guilt culture, people act according to what they think God thinks about them. And shame culture has to do with what other people think about them. So that's totally Japan, right? Mm-hmm. So if you make fun of, like, if you're made fun of in Japan, it's like so much worse than being made fun of in America. And that's why it's like there's like a bulletproof, like, wall between the two Manzai people in the audience, as opposed to stand-up comedy where it's like, talking to the audience. So it's really important to be safe with laughter here. And I think actually my Manzai is one reason why we're kind of stuck is because I have that American humor, like, built into me. And I think it can be kind of offensive sometimes to people, but
like sort of like dark humor kind of.
Sort of dark humor. They don't like that here. They really dislike that. There's like a saying in the Japanese comedy industry. It's kodomo kara ji-chan ba-chan made warasero, and it means like, make little kids to the elderly laugh. And from my perspective, or from a lot of people in America's perspective, they'd be like, that's totally boring. Why try to make everybody laugh? You know what I mean? Like, it's more like segmented. But in Japan, it's also a total like business in Japan.
But is it because it's like more scripted and planned out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about this. Like, if you're a foreigner in Japan, you have two options. You can be like the genius foreigner who all the Japanese people will like listen to whatever you say, or you can be the dumb clown. You know what I mean? You get those two roles. It's one or the other. Or if you're like a woman, you're either fat, you're ugly, or you're 40 years old and you're not married yet. That's like their three characters that they have,
Yeah.
So everything's characterized. Like Muramoto-san, he's from this really famous kombi called Unman Rashawar. He was telling me that comedians here are basically like mascots dressed up like at Disneyland, when you see a guy in like a Mickey Mouse costume or something like that. Like, it should be immediately like, you shouldn't even have to think about why they're funny. They should be funny, like just how you look at them.
They always have their like get up.
Yes. And I think a lot of the time, actually, their jokes don't even make sense. I think even like Japanese people don't get them, but it's like an earworm thing. Like, it just sounds good.
Right. Their catchphrase almost. Do you feel like practicing Manzai and writing jokes there translates to actually being funny, like hanging out with Japanese people? Like, do people expect you to be funny as well?
Yeah, I mean, which is kind of annoying, but also like, now that I'm saying this in front of you guys, I'll probably suck at speaking Japanese later, but I feel like I'm much better speaking Japanese than I'm speaking in English, for sure. I'm not saying my Japanese sounds like a Japanese person, but I'm like, can engage people. Yeah. I mean, it's like kind of a hypnotic thing.
Oh man, so that means like on the daily, you're just out here shocking every Japanese person you come in contact with.
Shock and laugh. Not only shock them, but make them laugh.
Yeah.
I always say this, man. Laughter is like, getting laughs is like heroin. Like, once you do it, you can never stop because it just feels so good. And it sucks because every comedian bombs sometimes, you know what I mean? But I find myself with like a group of like 5 people and I'm always trying to make people laugh. Like, that's my
addiction.
Yeah, it's my addiction. Yeah. That's why I haven't quit, man. It's why I haven't quit, for 11 years. I've been doing it for 12 years, but yeah.
And you're actually like pursuing a lot of other stuff, right? Like, I saw you have a band.
Dude. Yeah. Bands for fun. Actually, kind of for fun. I mean, I wish I could do something more with it, but that's for fun. Then I do YouTube stuff. I'm on like a pretty big YouTube channel, on my own YouTube channel. And then I do this streaming service. It's like an education streaming service, which is really big in Japan. So I mean, I got my master's at Sophia. And it was kind of all about Manzai. I think Matt vs. Japan posted the paper somewhere, but
right.
Yeah. So I do a lot of education stuff.
I saw in your Twitter bio, you have like this website talking about Chads.
Yeah. That's like a total troll name. So dude, this is like the hardest thing. I know you guys are, about immersion and about stuff. Like everything in Japan has to be a science. Like there has to be a science of how to learn English. And 99% of videos are about English in Japanese, or like they have some notebook and they're like writing in like one blue pen, like one word, one green pen, another word. You know what I mean? Like it's like, it's a total joke. It's like, dudes, just don't watch any Japanese stuff. Just watch English stuff. Also, then there's the cultural aspects. And I got, the comedy industry in Japan is like second to the Yakuza Japanese cultural wise. And I don't think I'm being bold saying that. Like I've heard before, like they're almost the same, like with the Joge Kanke. So I learned how to interact with Japanese people. My Japanese might not be the best, but I do know how to like work Joge Kanke. I know about stuff with companies. I know about stuff with senpai. So the culture of the, States is different as well. So I'm trying to teach that, and I'm trying to get them to stop like, verb plus adverb plus. It's like, no, dude, you're never going to learn Japanese, English like that,
So basically you're telling them, stop using these dumb videos and be a Chad.
Yeah. Exactly. Just do it. It stands for communicating higher aesthetic dynamics in speech. Cause I thought of communicating, and I was like, Chads. I was like,
you definitely thought of Chads first.
Oh yeah, I was like, for sure. Let me try to think of all the words that will work with.
That's the first thing I thought. I saw, and I like saw all the breakdown of the words. I'm like, I didn't remember any of that. I'm like, I know for sure Nick just did Chads first. There's no chance he came up with this whole complicated thing. It's like,
this is a KoreKara podcast exclusive, guys. Nobody else should know about this. Yeah. I definitely came up with that.
You weren't interested in like any of the other Asian languages? Because usually people after Japanese, they might be like interested in Chinese or Korean, similar.
I'm part Chinese, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on my dad's side. And I did
you're
try
native,
to learn.
technically native.
Yeah, I'm like 1/8. I'm like 1/8
Chinese.
though. Yeah. But I did try to learn Chinese, and I was like, this is way too hard. Goodbye. I shut the door like straight away. Yeah. Chinese was extremely difficult. I mean, Japanese is difficult too, I guess. For everybody studying Japanese now, the one thing I could say is I don't know what, people do now, but the biggest waste of time was studying kanji for me. I mean, like writing it, I should have just been reading.
What was your approach for studying kanji?
Well, I was at school, so like there's kanji tests where you have to learn how to write the kanji. It's a total waste of time. You never write kanji ever, except at like the doctors. But then you can just write that in hiragana. Why not?
What about when you're writing jokes? I feel like they use it. Don't they use
but
pen?
I'm typing it.
Oh, you're typing it.
Yeah. It's all being typed. So and my comprehension is high enough to where I know if the kanji is right or wrong, And then there's all these other things about kanji that are like, some kanji look like katakana words and you can just guess what it will sound like just from that. Or, some kanji will have like the water kanji in it, and then it will sound like,
Right.
So you didn't really need to study it. You just like intuitively get it, from seeing it all over the place all the time.
So you never use like anything like Anki?
I use it for Spanish. Yeah. But Spanish is basically, our alphabet a little bit tweaked. So,
right. But do you feel like that's because you've learned more about the tool, like the tools are now more available, or
dude,
do you feel like
it's so much easier to learn a language? It's ridiculous. Yeah. Back then, dude, there was like there was like 100 YouTube videos when I was in university. Now, dude, it's you don't need to go to school. Dude, everything. And I'm the type of guy that's like all paper. I like paper, but not anymore, dude. Now they have Anki, Duolingo, Netflix, YouTube, Language Reactor,
Well, I guess back then you probably shocked more Japanese people, right, than now.
Yeah. I get a lot now. I'm not trying to brag about myself, but everybody's like, Nick, you're like super like a Japanese person, like the way I express myself, I guess.
Do you have any like stories of shocking Japanese people? I feel like the better you get, the less shocking, because they're just like, oh, you've lived here a long time.
They're nicer to you when you're, when your Japanese is not that good. I'll be like, Boku no namae wa, and they'll be like, Nihongo jouzu desu ne, or something like that. And I'll be like, すいません、ちょっと渋谷に行きたいんですけど, and I'll be like, yeah, 渋谷に行きたいんです。
Shut up.
Yeah. It's like, dude.
Yeah, there should be like a Manzai joke about Nihongo jouzu. I feel like.
Yeah, dude. I can tweet stuff like that, and they totally get it, dude. It's really funny. I was actually just thinking about it yesterday, because I'll be like, what's a good katakana word that like table or something, like I'll say like table, and they'll be like, Hatson jouzu sugite kikitorenai yo, like, and I'll be like, well, what you're really saying is that my katakana pronunciation sucks,
Yeah.
Like, I guess you have to be a little delicate with it, because if you just call them all out on Nihongo Jozu, you're like attacking the entire Japanese population, right? So
Yeah.
that's dangerous with Manzai, right?
Yeah, and we do that. We do that in our Manzai, but it's amazing how sensitive Japan is. I'm actually going to do a video about it, and I don't want to like, you know, make them feel bad about it or anything like that, but Japan is like one of the most peaceful, safest places like in the world. I actually talk about this quite a lot. Like, say you're an American, you're like walking down the street or something. Actually, we did a TV show in Georgia this is like years ago, and my, you know, Manzai partner was wearing a suit, and you know, he'd walk down the street and somebody'd be like, "Nice suit," you know what I mean, and be like, "Whoa, people just talk to you here." But in Japan, if you were like walking down the street and somebody was like, "Suki no suitsu desu ne," you'd be like, this person is completely out of their mind, like a crazy, you know what I mean? Or in America, like you could just walk down the street and be like, "Good afternoon." Somebody like say, "What's up?" And in Japan, if you're like, "Konnichiwa," you are like a murderer. Like you're gonna like, you know, kidnap somebody's child or something.
Yeah. But then you have like foreigners that come to Japan and then they get like targeted by a camera crew asking like why they came to Japan.
Yeah, dude, you are nani shi Nippon. Yeah, dude. It's so funny because half of those are just fake. Yeah.
Oh,
dude.
mind blown, dude. Oh,
Yeah. There's tons of people
man.
that I've seen in like what are they called? Talent, like foreign talent agencies.
Right.
They ask me to do casting for shows like that sometimes. Just because I guess I've been doing this for so long. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we just heard a story where it seemed like they're really desperate for foreigners right now because there's nobody at the airport.
Yeah, dude.
So they're like going out into the Inaka looking for foreigners. And like,
Yeah.
Why are you here?
I always explain this to people. American patriotism is in your face and extremely like clear, and Japanese patriotism is like super like passive aggressive. So instead of being like Japan is the best, they like to hear like foreigners or other people talk about Japan in like a good way. And that's how they express like aikokushin or like patriotism. It's really funny. Like I can't say his name because I don't want to get him in trouble, but you guys will probably know who I'm talking about. He's one of the most famous American comedians in Japan. He was on a TV show and he totally, you know, says whatever he thinks. And the TV MC guy was like, "How did it feel coming to Japan and first experiencing the Four Seasons?" And he was like, "What are you talking about? I experience the Four Seasons in America all the time." And like everybody was like totally shocked that he said that, and they got mad at him behind it.
One way to shock Japanese people.
Yeah. Like TV here, dude. TV, you are told what to say.
Have you ever been on TV then and gone off script?
Yeah. I have. And the problem is, so I don't really go on TV now. I was going on TV a lot from like 2010 to 2013. I wouldn't mind going on now, but I just don't get called anymore. I'll probably get called again at some point.
They need the foreigners, man. They're desperate.
They need the foreigners. I know. Yeah. Well, my
You can be
Japanese is much better
Tensai
now.
foreigner on the quiz shows.
True.
Yeah. Well, dude, I actually turned down all these jobs for years because I felt like I got used those first couple years. And I'm in Sun Music, which is a really big company, and I've told the managers, and we've kind of worked out a deal for me to stop turning stuff down. But the problem is, like, so I have an aunt who lives kind of near George Lucas. You know, they'll somehow it would have gotten into that conversation. They'll write that on the script, like talk about Nick's aunt living next to George Lucas or something like that, right? Then on the TV show, the MC will be like, "So Nick, your aunt is best friends with George Lucas. How?" You know, like they'll just totally like, everything has to be exaggerated, you know? And then you end up becoming a liar, you know? And you can't be like in the middle of the show. No, actually, you know what I mean? Like that would just like ruin the...
So I guess it's confirmed your aunt is best friends with George Lucas.
Yeah. Everybody in Japan thinks my aunt is best friends with George Lucas. She's met him like once or twice. Yeah.
Okay. It's good to know. I'm sure that's probably why you stopped turning those down. Because if we go into your whole lore of your TV, Nick, it's probably going to be too much for any podcast, any TV show.
Dude,
I mean, the KoreKara podcast, like I could see it like handling it, but I don't know if the KoreKara listeners are ready yet. You know, so we'll save that
for the TV, the
another time.
back. The secret TV stories, yeah.
Do you feel like there's like any shift away from like TV and these like official companies now that there's like YouTube and stuff? Like, is there any appeal for you to like step away from that?
Totally. That's why I'm not doing it, man. I go on these, you know, I get guest spots on huge YouTube channels all the time, and I can be myself. I don't have to like pretend that I'm somebody else. I can talk about what I want to talk about to a certain extent. The problem is a lot of TV companies think that they can do what they're doing on TV on YouTube, and you can't. there's a really famous guy named Nishino. He's in this combi called King Kong. He wrote a book. You guys should, anybody studying Japanese who's like pretty good should read it. It's called Kakume no Fanfare. And he talks about how with the birth of like Twitter, YouTube, the internet, you can't lie anymore like you used to lie on TV. Like, you know, TV's all fake. All of it. They've gotten in trouble so many times for making fake stuff. I'll tell you about that in a second. But he basically said with the internet, now that you can be, you know, people can like look stuff up on Twitter, you can't lie. Like, you know, in the TV shows where it's like, they'll eat something like, and it will just probably not even be that good. He's like, well, now people can look up, you know, the reviews and they'll be like, okay, this was bull. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. That's actually something like culturally I've noticed the thing about eating. I've never seen a Japanese person eat something and then be like, oh, that was not good. It's just always like umai.
That's true.
That's totally, dude.
And they also wait a second like, oh.
Yeah, they're like,
like they're shocked.
Yeah. And it's just like some like cup noodles or something.
Yeah, it's like terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the stuff where they're like eating shoes and like if it's chocolate or not. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're saying
they eat like a real shoe. Like, oh my.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Japan is going back to the sensitive stuff, and Matsumoto-san has talked about this numerous times. Before Twitter, I mean, people could call into these companies and complain, but when Japan was in its bubble or getting out of its bubble, they spent like $1 million or whatever on some random TV show, and it was probably offensive to a lot of people, but it was extremely entertaining. Like the stuff we watched, like on YouTube, the stuff that made me interested in Japan was stuff that was going on at that time. So then when I got to Japan, I was like, wait, now TV is not like this at all. And it's because they actually listen to the people complaining, as where I feel like, I'm not sure, but America probably listen as well, but they probably don't, like, if there's one complaint about something, they won't change the TV show just because one person said that, but here they will.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of content before that was like just rated R or something.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I mean, they showed like naked girls on TV shows.
Yeah, because like when I was like really, cause I grew in Taiwan, and when I was like little and I traveled to Japan, like anytime we watched TV, it would be like really weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then totally when I studied abroad, it was like all quiz shows.
But the other thing is that you have to take into account is that Japan has such a shrinking population that basically TV has to target the people that are alive, and there's a lot of old people alive, and now they're not interested in that stuff anymore. You know, so you know, we kind of grew up in a culture where it's like niche channels, like you get like 1,000 channels or whatever, or 40 channels, and here it's these same 8 channels, and it brings everybody together. It connects the country, you know.
You know what else connects the country and the world? It is the one and only KoreKara message. And Nick, I know this is something that you've been working on for a long time, since way before you went to Japan, when you were in Oakland, all the way to when you're in Japan, through the Manzai school, comedy school, learning the language. And now, even with all the chads going on, you knew, this is the top priority right here, the KoreKara message. So out of everything you have been developing, this one piece of knowledge towards the KoreKara listeners in native Japanese, by the way, in native Japanese. I'm here to put you on the spot, Nick. Let's hear what you got.
皆さん、多分日本語を勉強してる人が多いと思いますけど、やっぱりコロナがそろそろ落ち着くと思うんで、皆さん日本に来て、留学でもいいし、別に旅行でも全然いいんですけど、あとたくさんアニメとか映画とか自分の好きなものを見て日本語を勉強してください。はい。
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the podcast. Comment down below if Nick shocked you with his native Japanese.
But you already know what time it is, guys. Time to shout out our patrons: Cedric, Rory, Faraz, Kevin, Alan, Darren, Drew, Jack, Joey, K, Shinani, Meredith, MKS, Polar, Suzu, Yui, Sad Boy, and Brit vs. Japan.